Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I know it's a nice night, and but hopefully we won't be here too long. But my name is Ann Shaughnessy. I am one of the research librarians on staff, and one of our duties is offering presentations on a variety of topics, financial, historical, genealogical. And this evening we have Stacy Bromann from the Dala group. She's going to tell us about making the most of Social Security.
Thank you so much, Ann, and thank you guys all for coming out. I know that it is a sacrifice to give up this beautiful weather that we're having as we've waited so long to have it, but I wanted to get started. So we're going to talk a lot about Social Security tonight, but before we get there, I always like to just start out by introducing myself and kind of explaining why I became a financial planner. So my story starts with my family of origin. So I'm sitting on my mom's lap. That's my dad, my sister, and my brother, obviously. It was probably about 1983, based on my hair and also the clothes that I'm wearing, but my mom sewed that dress. So she was a homemaker and was just absolutely perfect at everything. And I really think of my parents as like the ideal parents as well. Obviously, everyone's biased, but financially, they really tried to do everything right. They paid their bills, they saved, they had life insurance. They really thought they had a financial plan. Unfortunately for us, my mom got sick when I was about 9.5, and she ended up passing away from breast cancer before I turned 11. And the life insurance that they had, because they followed the advice of their financial planner at the time, they probably got the life insurance in the late 70s before my sister was born, but they were told that they didn't need a lot of life insurance on my mom because she wasn't bringing in any income. So they had $40,000 of life insurance on her and 10 times that on my dad because he was the breadwinner. So when my mom passed, obviously we were just completely devastated anyway, but my dad had a different devastation as well financially because he was trying to raise 3 kids with no money. And we did get Social Security because you get survivor benefits as a child, but my mom didn't work for a ton, so our benefits weren't that much. And the life insurance would have been huge, but there was only $40,000, and she was sick for 18 months off and on, so there was a lot of bills that resulted from that. So the $40,000 was really inconsequential to making our financial life easier. Now, my dad didn't share any of that with me when I was a kid, but if we fast forward, my husband and I have been married now for almost 23 years, and when we started out financially, right before I became a financial planner, we were figuring out life insurance and all of those things. And my dad said, I always talk to my dad about those types of things, and he said, Stacy, let me tell you what not to do. And then he shared with me his financial experience after my mom passed away. And that just left a mark on my heart. I obviously very much remember that time, so it was very impactful to me to think about how he felt during those times. And it just made me think that I don't want my children to ever have to think about anything like that, but I also don't want any of my clients to think about anything like that. So my upbringing is actually part of why I do what I do, because I want to make sure that the families that we serve don't have to worry about those things. So we are going to talk about Social Security tonight. That's actually one of the things that we talk about a lot in our practice with our clients, because I would say probably 80% of our clientele is either in retirement or approaching retirement. So Social Security is a hot topic. Before we actually get into the presentation, though, I want to go through this folder so that you kind of know what you've got in there. So we've got 2 different postcards with QR codes. We've got 2 different sets of videos. So my boss has a ton of YouTube videos, some just on retirement planning in general. We also have a recording of this presentation. So if you or someone that you know, so if you want to watch it again, or if you have someone that you know that wasn't able to make it today, you can use those QR codes to learn a little bit more about that. We also have this quick reference guide that has a lot of different facts and figures on it regarding Social Security, as far as minimum ages, full retirement age, maximum taxation, a whole bunch of different things. We also have a blank note sheet, and I gave you a pen when you walked in as well, so you can take notes along the way as we go along, because there's typically going to be a few things that you either want to take note of or something like that. We also just have a flyer just kind of depicting who we have on our team. We actually have a second team member, Dana, here today. So you would possibly see her if you took advantage of one of our consulting appointments as well. This brochure just tells a little bit more about our firm and how we work with our clients. And then the last thing that we have in here is a seminar survey card. I will touch on that at the very end. And other than that, we're gonna get started. So we are gonna talk about Social Security from start to finish. So we're gonna talk about the outlook of Social Security. We're gonna look at how you qualify for it. We're gonna look at a benefit statement. We're gonna look at individual filing strategies for married couples, divorced individuals, as well as surviving spouses. We're gonna look at penalties for filing early. We're gonna look at taxation and a couple of different things in there as well. So are you guys ready to talk about Social Security? Yes, all right. So the first thing that we look at is Social Security's outlook. So we were just talking about it with Ann in the back, but Social Security has a little bit of a murky outlook right now. We have heard a lot more about it in the news and in general recently, but as it stands right now, Social Security should have enough funds or resources to pay 100% of scheduled benefits until 2033. In 2003, when I graduated from college, exactly 23 years ago, I thought 2033 was like way, way, way in the future. And it kind of was back then, but now it's like 7 years away. And my younger daughter will be in college. And it'll be a blink and we'll be there. So it's coming up a little faster than what you would think. But part of the reason that Social Security's funding is changing is because of how many people are receiving it versus how many people are paying into the system. If we look back to like 1950, there were 16.5 workers paying into the Social Security fund for every one person receiving benefits. If we fast forward to 2023, that's only 2.7 workers paying in for every one person receiving benefits. And they actually anticipate that number to go down a little bit more in 2035. They actually anticipate that it's only gonna be 2.4 workers paying in for every one person collecting benefits. So obviously there's just not as much going in compared to as much as what's going out. There are a number of different factors with that. Obviously, longevity is one of the things that has really made an impact on all of this, because if you think back to 1950, people weren't living as long. If you also think back to 1950, families were much larger, right? Like, my dad still lives in the same town and goes to the same church as he did as a child. He had friends that had 13 siblings. I have only 2 kids, so, and that's like the average family now. So there's a number of different factors that kind of go into it. But the important thing is that we know that the fund is shrinking and we need to do something about it. So if nothing changes by 2033, when that fund shrinks, they would anticipate that your benefits would reduce by 20 to 25%, which is pretty significant. There are a number of different things that can change. So they float around the idea of moving up the full retirement age. So back in 1950, the full retirement age was 65. Then they changed it to 66. In 2015, they changed it to 67. And they stair-stacked that change. So if you were born in 1954, it was 66 and 2 months. Then 1955 was 66 and 4 months until we get to 1960, and then it's 67. So I anticipate by the time that Dana and I are getting ready to retire, it's for sure gonna be 68, maybe even 69, who knows? But that is one of the possibilities. Raising the maximum income that they tax for Social Security, I think would be one of the simpler things that they could do to kind of move the needle. They've talked about increasing the amount that's taxed for Social Security. So there's a number of different things that they're floating around. I think the biggest thing, as we think about elections coming up with primaries and all of that, with the November 2nd election cycle, we need to think about letting our elected officials know that it is important that they start to make these changes now rather than kicking the can down the road. Because I will get more anxious as we get closer to 2033. I think everyone will. So we need to just let them know that they need to start making those changes now. Any questions, though? Okay. I know it's like the most fun part of the conversation, but that's just kind of what that is right now. I do, by the way, think that they will make those changes. It's just whether or not they make them sooner than later, because I cannot imagine, whether it be a Republican or a Democrat in office, when Social Security changes, like that's just political suicide for your entire party. I don't think anyone else in that party would get elected for quite a while. So I do think that they'll make changes. It's just a matter of when. But okay, so let's talk about how you become eligible for Social Security. So how you become eligible for Social Security benefits individually is by working at least 10 years, which is essentially 40, you get 4 credits per year is your maximum. So if you had 40 credits, that's essentially 10 years of working. The earnings to get a credit in 2026 is $1,890. So that's 1 credit, so you can get 4 per year, so that would be $7,560. So even if you work part-time, it is very easy to get 4 credits right away at the beginning of the year. So not horribly overwhelming. Let's then take a look at how your benefit is calculated. So your benefit is based on an average of the highest 35 years of earnings in which the worker pays payroll taxes. So 10 years is the starting off point. However, if you've worked 40 years, for instance, many people in this room could have done that, they're gonna take the lower 5 years out of that, and your benefit is gonna be based on the highest 35 years of earnings. So if you've worked for 20 years, you're gonna have some zeros in that calculation. If you've worked 35 plus, they're gonna take out the lowest earning years, and your benefit is gonna be based on that higher earning amount. The next way that you would qualify is to be the spouse of an eligible worker. Sure? Yes, they are adjusted for inflation. So going back, so the next way that you would qualify is to be the spouse of an eligible worker. The third is to be the ex-spouse of a worker who is married at least 10 years to that eligible worker. And then finally, to be a surviving spouse, meaning that your spouse has passed and you would collect on their benefit. Any questions?
The 35 years of earning, has that number increased? I thought it was less than 35 years.
I don't believe that that number has changed, but I don't know that to be a fact. If it had, I'm sure it has been several years in the past that it would have changed. Any other questions? No? Okay. So the next thing that we want to do is actually look at a Social Security statement. So this is what we're looking at. This right here is the meat and potatoes of the actual retirement benefit. You can see there's disability, survivors, and Medicare on there. We're just going to look at the Social Security part. I do want to point out, if you haven't actually done this, this is what your statement looks like if you've signed up through SSA.gov. It is rare, but it still happens every once in a while that people haven't signed up through here. I know, right? Every once in a while. People might be averse to computers. You will still get a paper statement, but I think you get it maybe once a year, and it starts after 60. I think you regularly get them again after 60. So if I hadn't signed up through SSA.gov, I would not be receiving a paper statement because they want you to go online. But so if you haven't done it, SSA.gov, and you would click the sign in or sign up button. You go through 2 different things. You have the choice of either id.me or login.gov to establish your user ID if you haven't already. It is a little bit more cumbersome than it used to be, but they're verifying your identification to make sure that it's legit. So that's what we're going to look at. So the paragraph to the left is what we're going to focus on first. So right here, this first sentence, you have earned enough credits to qualify for retirement benefits. So that means that this worker has already received their 40 quarters. So if they haven't, that sentence is going to look a little bit different. We see it every once in a while with clients, but it would say you have 37 quarters, you need 3 more, and then this information on the side would just not be populated because you don't qualify yet. And then it obviously explains how you earn those credits again. Then right here, the second sentence, or actually really the third, but the second kind of paragraph, your full retirement age is 67. So anyone that was born again after 1960, your full retirement age is gonna be 67. So this worker's actual birth date was April 5th of 1962. Super uncommon, but you do wanna verify that that birth date is correct. I have run into one person that birthday was incorrect, which will obviously then make filing for Social Security a little bit more challenging. So we do want to verify this information as we go. And then this next sentence, as shown in the chart, you can start your benefits as early as age 62 or delay up until age 70. For each month you wait to start your benefit would be higher for the rest of your life. So that means that if this worker started filing at age 62, they would collect $14.65 a month. Their full retirement age again is 67, which would be $2,119 a month. If they delayed all the way until 70, they're gonna collect $2,634. So I'm gonna break down the math because you can see obviously the scale kind of slides up and expands when we go down. So each year that you file early, it is approximately a 6% reduction in your benefit. So essentially think of it as a 0.5% per month each year that you file early for Social Security. Each year that you delay, you are actually increasing your benefit by about 8%. So it's 0.675, I think, per month, each month that you delay beyond your full retirement age. And that is based on, or just to remind you, so if you start collecting at 62, you stay at that benefit for the remainder of your lifetime. You do not pop up at 67 at your full retirement age. So it is obviously worth noting that it's a big difference whether you file early or delay. Then the next thing, these personalized estimates are based on your earnings to date and assume that you would continue to earn, in this worker's case, $54,489 annually. The reason that that's important is they're assuming that this worker is going to continue working until they file for benefits. If that is the case, then obviously they're still taking their highest 35 years. Most of the time, people are earning, their higher earning years are closer to retirement. So you might be kicking some of those lower years out of the average if you delay filing. If you are going to have some zeros in there, it is actually wise to go and use this hyperlink to manipulate that number because you can change those numbers through the Social Security website. So if there's going to be a gap from when you stop working to when you file, it can actually sometimes adjust those numbers. So you do want to make sure that you're getting the most accurate information possible. Yes?
Okay, so he went through his full retirement at age 67.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's for April of 67. What happens if he decided he wanted to take it?
So he would have a little over 1% more.
A little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not that flat.
No,
No.
no, yeah.
Increases a little bit.
Yep, and if you would go online and say, like as you get closer and you say, I want to file at 66 or like 67 in 6 months, they will actually give you the number of what that should be.
I tried, they didn't. I had to place a phone call.
It should,
Help me out.
but it's obviously it's a website, so it's not always perfect, but it typically does kind of break it down beyond the, or prior to the full retirement age for that matter as well, but it should.
Based on your clients,
Mhm.
do you find them doing it sooner than later?
Just filing for their benefits?
No, like taking it, do you see most of your clients taking it 62, 63, or waiting till like 68, 69, based on their financial?
So every client is different.
Yeah.
The factors, so whether or not they're still working is a huge factor, what other assets they have is a huge factor, and then also if the couple both worked, we might have one file earlier and one delay, which we'll kind of go through. But I would say no. Dana, would you agree? I don't feel like anyone is the same. There's not one hard and fast average, I don't think.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's really beneficial to be able to run scenarios for taking it at full retirement age.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm sure you're gonna
Yeah.
talk about, but that's one of the things that
most of the time. It's delayed. And part of that, and we'll touch on this as well, the tax advantages of whatever else you can do while you delay is typically one of the deciding factors. No problem.
The wages that
Mhm.
it's not on a
So it is the Social Security wages, because not everything, so some of your benefits, still you pay Social Security tax on, and some you don't, so it is the Social Security wages.
Do you know, like, if you start taking, then is it gonna be locked for you, or will it reduce?
No clue. No clue. I would guess that people already collecting will be less impacted than people who haven't, but that is just my guess. We really don't have any idea. We're basing planning still off of what we know to be true, which is what the existing benefits are. Because there hasn't been a time that they haven't made the changes needed to make it more solvent, and I don't think that they will again. I think that they will make the changes. It's just a matter of when they make the changes.
Is that, are those monthly amounts based on the 54,000
Mm-hmm.
annual one?
Yeah, so it's based on that, but obviously their earnings record up until they file.
So is that an average of the 35 years
No, that's actually what they're currently earning.
currently? But
Mm-hmm.
the 35 years that they extrapolate, is that, do they take an average of that?
Yes, so all of it's adjusted for inflation. So this is page 2 of the Social Security benefit, and this actually goes through this person's actual earnings record. So they started earning in the 70s, they earned through the 80s, the 90s, and then obviously through 2020. So this is all adjusted for inflation and then averaged, and that's how they land on the benefit. So this is the next part, which is looking at page 2. So what we're looking for is accuracy. So we want to know what the earnings that our benefit is based on are, and then we also want to know that everything in there is accurate. I know not anyone in the government ever makes any mistakes, right? Unfortunately, they do. And also employers sometimes make mistakes as well. I have a client who is in her 40s, like a couple years younger than me. Her employer did not report her earnings to the government 1 year properly. So she actually has a 0 in there where she shouldn't. In that case, the employer is working on correcting that. But at the end of the day, if they don't get their poop in a group, if you will, she is still responsible to get that corrected. And you have to do that with your tax returns. So if there is anything inaccurate in your earnings, you actually have to give your tax return to the Social Security Administration. So you want to, even if you're not quite ready to retire, it is important to look at these things, because I don't have my tax returns from 2001. We just don't keep that stuff long anymore. I have everything back 7 years, but 7 years wouldn't help me if I had to disprove my 2001 income. So you want to make sure that you're looking at this so that you know what it is, but also for accuracy. Any other questions?
So we can acquire a tax the first time you start working?
No. So that's why you want to look at this.
Because I'm thinking, I started working as a child.
Yeah.
13 years old, and I'm sure that.
Yeah, if you were working a W-2 job. For you though, it would be, like those earnings would be truncated like this. I believe on the website you can actually go back and get them individualized. I believe that you can click on it to like narrow it down, but yeah. At that point though, also like I know generally how much I made when I first started working, but like I wouldn't be able to prove whether or not it was 100% accurate at this point.
They wouldn't be able to prove it either. So if I go in there and adjust it, it wouldn't.
You can't go in and adjust it. You would have to prove with tax returns if it was incorrect. Right, exactly. That's why I'm saying, like, you want to make sure that you're looking at it and don't just kick that can down the road. Take ownership and make sure that what you know is accurate.
Now when I go to tell my grandchildren, keep your taxes.
Yep. Well, and now, I mean, people would keep it on a flash drive, so you're not keeping
That's what I'm saying.
the paperwork. So, yeah.
Yeah, because everything I have is electronic.
Exactly.
but not from when I was 13.
No. Nope. Any other questions?
My dad is 69.
Okay.
He works full time.
Mm-hmm.
He filed his income tax about, he get a letter from that he filed and it should.
So it can, but it depends on how much he's making as compared to what he was.
The past 3-4 years he made.
So if it's not going to affect his highest 35 years average, then it might not change his benefit. But if it does, he should get something from Social Security. So if he hasn't received it, I would recommend to follow up. Any other questions? Okay, so we're going to look at Social Security filing strategies. The first thing that we look at is individual filing strategies, because obviously easier to look at one than two, and then we'll expand beyond that for married, then divorced individuals as well as survivors. So this kind of touches on what you were asking earlier. So this goes kind of through the spectrum. So the first thing that I want to point out is that this worker's full retirement age was 66, so they were born before 1954. But we're going to look at what their benefit is as early as they can take it, their full retirement age, and then also the maximum age. So age 62, the benefit would be $1,500. That is $1,500 a month, which means that's $18,000 per year. Not an insignificant amount of money, right? So if I decide to collect, obviously I'm going to collect $18,000 annually for the remainder of my lifetime. However, the next question is, we know what that is, does it benefit me to delay my filing? So we then start to think about how much I'm leaving behind if I don't file and how long I have to live to make up for what I've left behind. So if I delay until 66, so my full retirement age, I'm going to collect $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 annually, and that's $6,000 a year more than what I was collecting at 62. Which is $6,000 would pay a lot of bills for me. I'm sure it would for you too. So if I'm leaving though $18,000 a year behind, 18,000 times 4 is $72,000. I don't know about you, but if I saw $72,000 just sitting on a pile on the ground or on the sidewalk, I would think about stopping to pick it up, right? So I have to out-earn that somehow. So if I'm going back up to $2,000, $6,000 more a year than what I was collecting at 62. How long does it take me to make up for the $72,000 I've left behind? Anybody? Dana can't answer because she's a math whiz. Anyone else though? 12 years. So it takes me 12 years. So if I delay filing until 66, that means that I have to live until 78, and then I'm in the black, meaning that I've now profited from delaying from Social Security. So that 78 longevity starts to play, a factor in my head, because that's a good chunk of time, right? Let's take it one step further. So we know, again, if I'm filing at 66, I'm taking $24,000 annually, $200 a month. If I delay 4 more years, that's $640 a month more, and that's $7,680 annually more than what I would have had at 66. $24,000 a year times 4 is $96,000. Much more large pile that I would for sure thinking about picking up. But so I'm collecting $7,680 more per year, but I've left now another $96,000 on the ground, or behind me, if you will. How long does it take to make up for that? It's another 12 and a half years. So if I delay filing until 70, I have to live until about 82 and a half. And I'm sorry I don't draw the straightest line up and down with my laser pointer, but if I live beyond 82 and a half, I've then made, again, a profit, or I'm doing better. You can see if all of these 3 individuals lived until age 90, the person that delayed filing until 70 collects significantly more than the predecessors. But health, longevity, other assets, spouse's retirement income, all of those different things also play a factor. Taxes being another one of those significant things, because taxable income and Roth conversions and all of those different things all kind of work together too. So, but this is kind of the starting off point to think about whether I should file earlier or file later. Is, do I have other income? What are my expenses? What is my health? Am I still working? All of those different things kind of play into that decision. Any questions before we move on? No? Okay. So the next thing that we want to look at is filing strategies for couples. So in a couple, you can, and as married individuals, you can either file for your own benefits or file for spousal benefits. You cannot have both your own benefit, though, and a spousal benefit. It's either one or the other, which is a more common question than you would think. But okay, so we're going to look at a real-life couple, Tom and Mary, both again born before 1954 because their full retirement age is 66. Tom's full retirement age benefit is $2,500 a month. Mary's full retirement age benefit, she's a few years younger, but if she delays until her full retirement age, she's going to collect $1,200 a month of her own benefit. The question is, does Mary qualify for a spousal benefit? And if so, what would her spousal benefit be? So we're going to take a look at the rules of the spousal benefits, and then we'll go back and look at Mary and Tom. So the first, you must be age 62 or older to qualify. So if when Tom is 62, Mary will be 59. She would not qualify for the spousal benefit because she's not 62 or older. Next, you must have been married for at least 1 year. So you can't fly to Vegas, get married, and then come back and be at the Social Security office the next day because you have to have been married for at least 1 year. Next, your spouse must first file for benefits. So if my spouse has not filed, I cannot collect a spousal benefit. I could only collect my own. Next, if claimed at your full retirement age, the spousal benefit would be 1/2 of your spouse's full retirement age benefit. So thinking again to Tom and Mary, with that 3 years difference, if he files at his full retirement age, but she wants to file at the same time, she will not collect the full spousal benefit because she cannot, she'd be filing early. So just like we looked at with your own personal benefit, if you're filing at 62 versus 67, it's a 6% discount each year, which is essentially almost 30% from that full retirement age benefit that you would have as a discount. And this asterisk is also super important. The spousal benefit is permanently reduced if you claim it before reaching full retirement age, which is kind of just what I had stated. If you're filing it early, that is what you are filing. It does not pop up at age 67 to that full spousal benefit. The one thing that's not on here that I want to point out, so if you're claiming it at your full retirement age, the spousal benefit would be 1/2 of your spouse's full retirement age benefit. The spousal benefit does not increase beyond age 67 or the full retirement age. So if your spouse waits until 70, obviously their benefit is going to be higher, but you do not get more than 50% of the full retirement age benefit, which we'll discuss with Tom and Mary in different scenarios. Any questions before I go there? Of the spousal, yep. Okay, so going back to Tom and Mary, his full retirement age benefit again is $2,500. Her benefit at full retirement age would be $1,200, so 50% of the $2,500 is $1,250. So while it is not a significant amount, Mary does actually benefit from the spousal benefit if she would take it at her full retirement age because it's $50 a month more than what her own benefit is. Does that make sense? Okay, now we're gonna look at a few scenarios because again, as we said earlier, everybody's financial scenarios are different, so we want to look at all the different options. So the first option, Tom wants to get the maximum that he can, so he's going to delay until 70. So instead of the $2,500 at 66, he's actually going to collect a little over 30% more because it's 8% times 4, so it would be 32%. Increase on his $2,500. So he would collect $3,300 a month. Mary does not want to work anymore. So at 66, she files. So again, Tom hasn't filed yet, so she is gonna claim her own benefit at age 66. And then when Tom files, her benefit will increase to the $12.50 a month because then she can get the spousal benefit once he has filed. Any questions? Nope, okay. Next, what if Tom decides that he's gonna file as early as possible? So again, his full retirement age benefit at 66 would be $2,500. He's claiming 4 years early. 4 times 6 is 24%. So he's taking a 25% reduction on his $2,500 a month benefit. However, Mary stays steady. She doesn't file until her full retirement age. So she is still collecting that full 50% of Tom's full retirement age benefit, even though he decided to collect several years earlier. Questions? Okay. Finally, Tom and Mary decide to collect at the same time. So he again is collecting his full $2,500 a month. She is collecting 3 years early. So she's gonna take that $1,250 because she does get the spousal because Tom has filed. So she's taking that $1,250 and she'd take an 18% reduction on that because she's filing 3 years early. So she would end up still better with the spousal benefit, not significantly, but she would still be better at $1,025 a month approximately on the spousal benefit if she files at the same time as Tom. Any questions? No? Okay. So next thing is ex-spousal benefits. Always a little bit spicier, so we save it for the second round. So obviously, divorce impacts people in different ways. As a divorced spouse, you may still be entitled to the benefits of your ex-spouse on a couple of conditions. First, you have to have been married for at least 10 years. That is marriage date to the divorce date. If you were separated at 9.5 years, but the divorce wasn't finalized until after 10, you still qualify for the spousal. If you were married for 6, it may have felt a lot longer, but you do not qualify for the ex-spousal benefit unless it goes beyond the 10. Next, similar to spousal benefits, you both have to be at least 62 or older in order to qualify for the benefit. So if there's an age gap, if we think back to Tom and Mary, she cannot file for the ex-spousal at 59. She has to be over 62 and he has to be over 62. The filer of the ex-spousal benefits has to be unmarried when they file. So if it were me, and my husband and I were no longer married, I would still have to be single at the time that I filed for ex-spousal benefits. He could be remarried, and she could be collecting spousal benefits from him. It does not matter. As long as I am unmarried at the time of filing, I could collect those ex-spousal benefits as well, as long as we fell under the rest of the criteria. So again, it does not matter if the ex has remarried, and they won't even know that you are filing on their benefit. Nobody knows anything of the situation, but you do need to have your divorce decree, you need to have your marriage certificate, and you need to know what their social is in order to collect that. The one thing that is different than the spousal benefits is that the ex-spouse does not have to file first. So with spousal benefits, you cannot collect the spousal unless your spouse has filed. Everybody knows divorced couples, some that get along and some that do not. And so for those that are in that second camp, where there might be a spiteful ex-spouse, they've taken that drama off the table. And as long as you're both over 62 and meet the rest of the criteria, you could still qualify for that ex-spousal benefit. It is still 50% of the full retirement age benefit, and it does not contribute, or it does not increase past 67. Most of the time, if you're divorced and you've been working significant, like if you have a pretty good work record as well, most of the time you're going to be better off on your own benefit than your ex-spouse's. But every situation is different, so we will always still look at it. Any questions? No? Okay. The least fun conversation is always the survivor benefit. So we're gonna break that down too. So the survivor benefit is going to be based on the earnings of the person who passed away. The reduced survivor benefit you can take as early as age 60. So if you think about that again, most people can file as early as age 62, but you could take that reduced survivor benefit at age 60. So instead of taking a 30% reduction in benefit if you're filing that early, you're actually gonna take a 42% reduction in benefit if you're filing that early. So it has to make sense for you to file that early because that's a significant reduction for you to take for the rest of your life. You can get, however, the full survivor benefit if you claim it at your full retirement age. Just like the spousal and the ex-spousal, the survivor benefit does not continue to increase past the age of 67, however. So if you wait until 70, it would be wiser to wait for your own benefit than it would be for this survivor benefit. This one's a big one. If you remarry before the age of 60 and are still married when filing for benefits, you forfeit your survivor benefit. So to bring the story back to my dad, my mom and dad were married for like 21 years or something like that. Obviously, my mom passed away. My dad remarried my 5th grade teacher a little over 2 years ago, or 2 years after my mom passed. They have been married for 33 years now. So my dad would not have been able to collect the survivor benefit if my mom had been the primary wage earner because he got remarried. So he forfeited that survivor benefit. Last. You can switch from the survivor benefit to your own benefit or vice versa at any time. So let's take it back to this reduced survivor benefit at age 60. So my husband and I have been married since we got out of college, and we've very, very similar work records, also very similar earning records. So I would never benefit from a spousal benefit, nor would he. However, if we were in a situation that one of us passed away before the age of 60, I could then, so if he passed away first, I could take that reduced survivor benefit at 60, let my benefit continue to grow, and then switch over to mine. I would most likely let mine maximize at the age of 70 to switch over, or I could take my own benefit at 62. If his were significantly better than mine, I could take my own benefit at 62 and switch over to his at 67 after it would have been fully matured. So that would be a way that it would possibly make sense to take a benefit as early as age 60, but it would typically have to be something like that. We will get to it in a few slides, but there are earning limits if you file before your full retirement age. So if you're thinking about the 42% reduction, if you file as early as 60, plus the limitation of what you can earn, most of the time, if the survivor benefit is your best benefit to take, it would benefit you to delay it as much as possible. Any questions? Okay. So we did get a question about public pensions, and there has been some changes. So you would probably be familiar with the windfall elimination provision, which is if I was the teacher, police officer, firefighter, state university retirement employee, they all pay into their pension and they don't pay into Social Security based on that work. However, with those same 4 categories that I mentioned, it's not uncommon for them to work a public sector job as well where they're still contributing to Social Security, whether they're tutors, carpenters, fire inspectors, all of those different things. Super common for them to have or be bivocational, I guess is how you would say it. So if they still qualify for Social Security, they would also be able to collect their pension at the same time. There used to be limitations on what they could collect from Social Security. However, the Social Security Fairness Act, also known as HR 82, eliminated the windfall elimination provision as well as the government pension offset. So the government pension offset would be a spousal benefit or the spousal, like the survivor benefit. So they've eliminated those things. However, it's still kind of complicated. So if those things retire or pertain to you, fill out that survey card in the folder and we'll meet together with that consultation and still go over your specific options. Has anybody ever heard of retroactive benefits? No. Okay, we had no yeses at all. So not super common, but it is becoming more common as people delay their benefits. So if you postpone your benefits past your full retirement age, so again, for most in this room, it is going to be past the age of 67, you will actually have the opportunity, if you desire, to request a lump sum payment of up to 6 months' pay. So it's a little bit too good to be true, but it can be the right thing for you in certain situations. So the name of the title is retroactive benefits. So if you're taking that lump sum, you're taking a 6-month step back in time to that lower benefit. So if you had waited until 67 and a half, you take that lump sum, but they're gonna pay you the benefit as if you filed at 67 versus 67 and a half. So you're locking in that lower payment then, again, for the rest of your life. You cannot take retroactive benefits anytime before your full retirement age. So again, at 66 and a half, it would never be a conversation. But if you're past your full retirement age and you are filing, they will talk to you about it. You just need to know kind of what your answer is going to be before you actually have your interview with the Social Security Administration so that you can be prepared. Just like when you're buying a car, they really push the warranty and things like that. They'll push the 6 months of retroactive pay, so you just need to know kind of what your answer is going to be. Most of the time, if you've waited on purpose and you want that higher benefit for the remainder of your lifetime. However, health can change, finances can change. There can be a number of different things that would still make that appropriate for you, but you just want to know what your options are prior to sitting down. Any questions with that? Mm-hmm. You can get that lump sum if you wait until 70. I actually ran into someone that didn't file and he was 71 and a half. So I encouraged him to take the lump sum. I don't know if he did, he never followed up on it, but for him it would be like a no-brainer because after age 70, your benefit no longer continues to increase, other than the cost of living, of course, but for him it would have been a no-brainer because he's not leaving anything behind. But yeah, always a situation that you want to be prepared for. Any other questions? No? Okay. So, again, not super common, but I have run into just one individual. I've been doing these for about 2.5 years, and I've run into one individual for the retroactive, and I've run into one that the withdrawal of benefits would make sense as well. But so a withdrawal of benefits allows you to essentially withdraw your application from Social Security. So you can do that as long as you're within that first 12 months of filing. You have to pay back the gross amount that you received from the time of filing until the withdrawal of application. So let's say that you're 11 months in, your benefit is $2,000 a month, you have to pay back $22,000, which is a good chunk of change, right? And it is the gross amount. So if you have taxes withheld from that, you have to pay that back too. You will get a refund at the end of the year, but you do have to pay back the gross amount. But if you are filing early and you weren't working, but then you get a job and it's a significant, the job has a significant paycheck with it, it might make sense for you to do that. You are limited to one withdrawal of benefits during your lifetime. So it is not a start and stop and start and stop kind of a situation. You can start withdrawal and then start again several years later, but if you would try to do it again, you can't do it. So you want to be, again, certain of your decisions that you're making. But so one of the first seminars that I did 2.5 years ago, a gentleman, I think he was like 63 or 64, and he had a stretch of not working, so he's like, why not file, right? So he started receiving his Social Security benefit. And about 6 to 8 months later, he got a job making well over 6 figures. And we'll talk about the limitations for working and earning in just a second, but the math wasn't there for him to continue to collect. So he was working on whether or not he was gonna do the withdrawal of benefits, but for him, if he was gonna keep that job, it totally made sense to pay back the lump sum. Any other questions? Okay. So I'd kind of mentioned cost of living adjustments, and you can see there's been a little bit of a roller coaster. So in 1980, when I was born, Social Security was in the double digits, like the cost of living increased, but mortgage rates were in the double digits, CD rates were in the double digits, and inflation was just crazy back then. In 1990, the cost of living adjustment was 5.4%. We've gone down to 1.3. It's in 2008, right before everything kind of crashed, it was 5.8. But we all remember 2009, 2010, and 2015 where it was 0. 2023, it was 8.7. It's the highest that it's been in several years. We went down and then back up. So 2026, the cost of living increase was 2.8. We find that out in November. Based on numbers now, we think that it probably would be a little bit higher than it was last year, just based on general economic factors. However, they decide that in November, and then you get a new statement, like you get a 1099 for your taxes and what your taxable income was, but then you also get a letter, like a benefit letter for the new year to say, this is my gross amount, this is what my Medicare Part B will be, and then this is taxes if I'm taking out, and then my benefit after that. The good news is that you typically do get a cost of living increase. The unfortunate news that comes along with that, though, is typically your Medicare Part B premiums and your supplement premiums also increase. So always fun, but at least you do get a higher benefit to take those other benefits out of. If you have questions on Medicare, we do have Medicare agents that we work closely with that we can connect you with if you have specific questions with that. We know enough to be dangerous, but we'd rather give you to the experts. So if you need that information, reach out and I'd be happy to give it to you. But any questions? Okay. So this is the collecting Social Security while working. So if you're collecting and you're before your full retirement age, you have income limitations to what you can collect before they start penalizing you. So if you're under your full retirement age, so think about this, 62, this column would be age 62 to 66. If I'm still working, I am limited to earning $24,480 annually before they're gonna withhold some of my benefit. Which, if you're thinking about it, you could make more than that working part-time. I, very long time ago, worked at Walgreens, and there were ladies that worked 20 hours a week that were still above the earnings limit for their Social Security. But so if you're working and you're past that earnings limit, they're gonna withhold $1 for every 2 that you're over. So going back to the gentleman that wasn't working and then got a big 6-figure job, you're making even $50,000 a year, you're $25,000 over the limit. So 25,000 divided by 2 is 12,500. So if I'm collecting $2,000 a month and I'm making $50,000 a year, they're gonna withhold 12,500 of my benefit because I'm past that earnings limit. So that means I wouldn't have a benefit in January, February, March, April, May, June, part of July. It doesn't make sense to collect typically if you have a fairly significant income. So then you're thinking of delaying Social Security until you're no longer working or until your work status changes to part-time or your income drops significantly. So then the next category. So when you're in the year of your full retirement age, this is the calendar year, by the way, not the first 12, not the 12 months. I'm a September birthday, so if I would be, if they don't change it, it would be 2047 when I could collect my full retirement age Social Security. So if I filed in January rather than September for my birthday, I could work $65,000, or I could earn $65,000 from working, but they do divide that by 12, so I would get essentially 3/4 of that I could earn before they would withhold my benefits. So it's a little over $5,000 a month that you can earn before they would withhold your benefits. When you're in this column, so in the year of your full retirement age, they only withhold $1 for every 3 that you're over. So you have a lot more leeway, but I am still of the mindset that if I am working, I want them to withhold nothing other than what I already pay, because I do not want to lose any of my benefit. If we go to the month of your full retirement age, so once you are actually 67, you can work as much as you want and collect as much as you want in Social Security without any penalty at all. So I could be making $150,000 a year, still collect my Social Security benefit at age 67, and I do not have any penalties, I don't have anything withheld, or I will have to have taxes withheld, but that's the next conversation. But I don't have any penalties for collecting and working. So that's where it starts to make a little bit more sense if I'm going to work and collect at the same time. Any questions?
Don't they get that back
No.
I thought you get that back. It would help, because I've read it, but
You've heard it?
read it.
I am not aware that you get it back.
Nobody else has heard that? I heard that what they withhold for retirement age, you get that back.
Why would they withhold it then?
I don't know, that's what, I was gonna ask you that question.
Yeah, no. I have not seen one person get it back. It is gone. They hold on to it.
This is earned income, not interest dividend.
Correct. The taxation part will be all of everything, but this is earned income. So like your pensions, IRA withdrawals, all of that does not count. It has to be income from earnings. Any other questions? Okay. So federal taxation of Social Security benefits is the most important and also most popular. I'm of course joking, that's always the least popular, but we're gonna talk about the federal taxation of your benefits next, which is our last topic. So your taxation of your Social Security benefit is based on something called provisional income. So your provisional income is comprised of your adjusted gross income. We add back the non-taxable interest, so the municipal bond interest that you don't pay taxes on, federal tax at least, you would still have that included in your calculation, and then also half of your Social Security benefit. So that is what they're going to add up to decide how much tax you pay. So there are 3 categories, and of course, two different filing strategies. So you either file a single head of household or married filing separately or married filing jointly. So if you're in that first category and your provisional income is below $25,000, so single head of household or married filing separately, if your provisional income is below $25,000, you do not pay tax on your Social Security benefit. Married filing jointly, if your provisional income is below $32,000, again, there is no tax on your Social Security benefit. If we go to the next category, we've got single head of household or married filing separately. If that income is between $25,000 to $34,000, up to 50% of your Social Security will be taxed on a federal basis. And if married filing jointly, it is $32,000 to $44,000. That again, up to 50% of your Social Security income would be taxed. Finally, single head of household or married filing separately, if your provisional income is above $34,000, you'll pay up to 85%. Up to 85% of that income would be taxed. And then married filing jointly, if your provisional income is above $44,000, again, up to 85% of your benefit could be taxed. Just to remind you, the provisional income includes the sum of wages, taxable and non-taxable interest, dividends, pensions, self-employment income, and other taxable income, plus half of the annual Social Security benefit. So we are going to take a look at 2 different couples, just as an example to kind of drive that home so that it makes sense. I'm a visual learner, and I think a lot of people kind of put the pieces together with that visually, so we're going to take a look. So I want to first point out that couple 1 and couple 2 actually receive the same amount of income. It's just where they're getting that income from and how it's taxed is very different. So couple 1 has $5,000 of interest income from CDs, so they probably have about $125,000 to $150,000 in CDs at the bank right now. Their dividend income is about $10,000. They've got tax-free bond interest income of $5,000. So again, that municipal bond would have to be probably about $150,000 that they would have in there to get that $5,000 of income. IRA income of $25,000. That's traditional IRAs, meaning that that is fully taxable to them. And then their Social Security benefit is $22,000. You're okay. So again, we're going to cut this in half. So the provisional income includes half of the Social Security benefit. So this in half would be $11,000. So we're going to take $11,000 off of that $67,000. Couple number 1 has a provisional income of $56,000, which means that their Social Security benefit is 85% taxable. So what does that mean? So 85% of that benefit would be about $18,500. And then they would be in the 12% tax bracket. So their tax on their Social Security would be about $2,200 in that tax bracket. So they would still be paying tax on their Social Security benefit. They would also pay tax on their traditional IRA, and they'd have dividend income and interest income that they'd be paying tax on as well. We're gonna look at couple number 2. Are like actual income. Yeah, so 12% of that would be another like almost 3,000, like probably 2,700 or 2,800. Yeah, so they'd still have a tax bill at the end of the year. Yeah. Now, couple number 2. They have the same $5,000 of interest income from CDs, the same $10,000 of dividend income, the same $5,000 from the municipal bonds. However, instead of a traditional IRA, they're taking $25,000 from a Roth IRA. They do not pay federal tax or state tax for that matter on that Roth IRA distribution because they paid that tax prior to the deposit. So no tax here, and again, half of that benefit. So we're gonna take out, instead of $11,000, we're taking $36,000 off of this total. Couple number 2 has a provisional income of $31,000. So they slide right under that mark, and they're not gonna pay taxes on their Social Security benefit. Again, they do not pay taxes on the Roth IRA either. And then no federal taxes on the municipal bond, and this would be covered by their standard deduction. So couple number 2 would actually be in a very favorable position tax-wise. So that's actually one of the things that we look at. So going back to that first question that you asked again, tax planning is one of those things that really makes a difference for people, whether or not it makes sense to file early outside of what their income is while they're working. So one of those things that we try to be as tax efficient as possible when we're helping our clients plan. Yeah.
What, I don't know. As far as withholding taxes from Social Security, is there a certain percentage that would,
Depends on what your total income is. So I would not be able to make a suggestion without knowing all of those things, which you probably don't want to tell me in front of the whole crowd. But so.
According to your numbers, if you make less than $81,000.
81,000?
If you have the Roth set up.
Oh, yeah, but so it just depends on what everything, like if you're taking money out of traditional IRA, if you've got dividends, all of those different things. So we do help our clients through that, but that's not something that I would be able to tell you off the top of my head, not knowing what your income is. But it's a W-4V, you file with Social Security to do the withdrawal of the taxes, and it can be adjusted to whatever is right for you.
would they let us know approximately?
No, but when you file your taxes at the end of the year, you know what tax bracket you're in, and that's how you would choose going forward.
Okay, so if we were like saying the 15%, then we would just say, let's take 15% off of Social Security.
Correct. Yep.
So if I'm retired and my wife is still working,
Mm-hmm.
and she's making above 44,000, then 85% of my Social Security will be taxed, even though she's not drawing anything.
Correct.
She's still not retired yet.
Yeah, because it's joint.
Only one person's.
Correct.
So I would have to pay 85% on my Social Security.
85% of your, yes, 85% of your Social Security would be taxed, but you would pay according to your tax bracket still.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
When were those designed?
I'm gonna say back in 1950, but I don't know that for sure.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
2026 now.
Yeah, right, if you think about it, so obviously, again, taking Roth IRAs, so you could take $1 million of Roth IRA income and it would not affect your provisional income. But so yeah, I don't think they've changed that number. I don't think they've changed it. I've had my investment licenses since 2010 and they didn't change the R&D age until COVID. So that, and it was 70 and a half for years before that. So they don't change a lot of those things very quickly. And then they change it and change it again. So, but yeah, that's an excellent point and forever.
Would union pensions be included as a total?
Yes. Yes, because that is federally taxable. So state of Illinois, so the one shining star that we have in the state of Illinois is you do not pay state tax on any of your retirement income, whether that be pensions, Social Security, IRA withdrawals, anything like that. You do not pay state tax. I don't think that that's gonna last forever. With the deficit that the state of Illinois has, I can't imagine that they're gonna not change that at some point, but I am not a sunshiny thinker with state of Illinois' federal policy, but currently it is not taxable. But okay, so that survey card is going to come in handy for you now. So we have covered a lot of information tonight. So we actually offer a complimentary consulting session based on your specific financial situation. We do value that consultation at $425, but because you're here, you can return that survey card to me, and as long as I have you scheduled within the next 14 days. I do not need to see you in the office. I just need to have your appointment on the books. We would be able to honor that. What we're looking to do is uncover specific tax planning opportunities for your retirement, as well as explore your Social Security filing options. What we would ask that you bring is your Social Security benefit statement, an investment account statement, or all of your investment account statements, as well as a recent tax return so that we can get into the meat and potatoes of your specific situation. Again, I would have you fill in that survey card and hand it to me before you leave. It is not a requirement, so do not feel any pressure. It's just absolutely voluntary. However, there's a library form at that plain white paper that also came with your folder. That's for the library. So you would hand that back to Anne and the survey card back to me. If you don't have any more questions or anything like that, we have reached the end of our presentation and you guys are free to go. However, I would be happy to answer questions as well.